Okay, so video number 2 in the Learn Wedding Photography YouTube video series, and in line with my course, the link to which is below. If you haven't seen the first video, subscribe and then nip back and you'll see the first video, which was the introduction to this series of videos, where hopefully I'll pass on some useful information about wedding photography. And it's the photography and the business. And this video number 2 is we're going to kick off with the business of wedding photography. And the reason I'm doing that is because wedding photography, like pretty well every business, you've got what the core of the business is. So it might be wedding flowers, it might be wedding cakes, it might be something totally different. You might open a sweet shop. You know, any business which is basically a one-man band. You've got the thing that you do, dressmaking, and then you've got the business. So those two things are totally separate, and the business is largely the same no matter what the thing that you do is. And I would say that running a wedding photography business or any other business is likely to be 65%, say 2/3 is about the business, 1/3 is about the photography. Maybe that's an exaggeration, maybe it's 50-50, but the business is extremely important if you want to be a full-time wedding photographer. Let's just take a step back and say that what is a wedding photographer? It's someone who photographs a wedding. So that could be, you may want to call yourself a wedding photographer if you did one wedding last year and you've got 2 weddings this year at one end, through to the guy who's got well, let me give you 2 examples of the guy at this end. Someone who's got 20 weddings booked and is being paid £4,000. I'm here in the UK, and as I've said in the first video, money is totally different between the UK and the US and maybe Australia and France and all sorts of things. I'm talking about here in the UK. So he gets paid £4,000 for doing 20 weddings. To get paid £4,000 for a wedding here in the UK, that guy, and I use the guy with no real reference to the sex of the person doing it, guys, general, men and women. So to make the £4,000, he's going to have to, or she is going to have to offer probably a second shooter. Maybe that second shooter will do some video. Maybe they'll have a drone. Maybe they'll have an assistant. There'll be probably the bride and groom's album, and then probably 2 parents' albums, maybe some small bridesmaids kind of photo books. There might be a big print, framed print included in that £4,000. It's not just going to be turn up with my camera and fire off a few shots and then send you some, you know, edited photos on a USB. You're not going to do that for £4,000, not here in the UK anyway. You're going to have to offer a huge range of things, which means the £4,000 isn't actually what that person gets paid. So their net profit isn't £80,000. It's likely, I would suggest, more like 55,000. Also at that end, you've got the person doing 40 weddings a year at £1,500 to £2,000, where it is more about just turning up with a camera, or 2 or 3, and spending the whole day there, doing some really, really excellent photos, editing those photos to look absolutely stunning, giving the couple 200-300 of those, maybe doing a wedding album, maybe some videos. That's probably about it. Earning much the same as the other person. So you've got this wide range of sort of services that wedding photographers can offer, and a wide number of weddings that wedding photographer will do in a year. So who am I talking about? What is reality for a wedding photographer? I'm not going to bore you with all about me again. I've already done that in the first one. But this year I have, in fact, I've just booked one yesterday since I did the first video. So I think that's now 39 weddings for this year. I've booked 2 for 2025 in the last few days. So I think we're up to probably nearly 20 for next year. I would expect to do about 40 weddings a year. I don't want to do more than that because it just gets so busy, because you do tend to get some in the middle. You do tend to get a peak in the summer. So it does get extremely busy, and 40 is plenty. I'm actually trying to do a few less for next year. So I might not be at the far end of wedding photography, but I'm probably up at that end rather than at the guy who's doing 2 or 3 as a favour to friends and family. And I've done this for at that sort of level now for about 6 years. So the reality is, to be at that level, it's a absolute full-time job. If you think you can do weddings as a sideline, yes, you can. You can, and that's probably the way you want to start, by doing some ads, talking to friends and families, talking to maybe bridal shops, and leaving a few cards around, just doing some sort of fairly low-key marketing. Pick up the odd wedding now and then at a relatively low price, and take it from there and build things up. And that's what my course, link below, is all about. It's about going from that to being more like at this end of things. So let me give you some numbers to put some reality to some of the things that I see online. 2 things I see online. First of all, about photography, about how you can take these stunning, wonderful, world-class wedding photos by buying a new lens and putting some flash on and all sorts of stuff. That's not really what wedding photography is about, but we'll deal with that in the next video. On the business side of things, I see these crazy ads, Instagram, I don't know, book 10 weddings with this one Instagram ad and stuff like that, or the secret formula for Facebook ads and so on and so forth. It is not about having one way of booking wedding clients. It's about having a whole raft of things which all have to fit together to create a sustainable business. And knowing what the market is a really useful place to start. So I'm just going to look at the PDF that comes with the course, just to remind myself of a few numbers. Right. No, that's gone too far. Market. Right. I'm going to talk about the UK. I did quite a bit of work when I wrote the course to find out what the market is. So in the UK, we have around about 220,000 weddings a year, if you can believe it. That's more than I expected, but that's the number. In the UK, we have about 50 counties. Each of those counties roughly has about 1 million people. I'm talking very round numbers here. So that means that there's 4,400 weddings per year per county. I'm probably talking England. If you live in the Scottish Highlands, where you can drive for 30-40 miles and see one house, things are probably a bit different up there. You're going to have to be talking about a bigger area. But here, where I live, Suffolk, East Anglia, I cover 4 counties: Cambridge, Norfolk, Essex and Suffolk. So I've got about 4 million people in my catchment area. And my catchment area means I need to drive at the most probably 70 or 80 miles tops. Maybe a little bit more on the odd occasion. But that's a rough one. Which means that in those 4 counties, in a year, there's 17,600 weddings. And sad to say, there are other wedding photographers in my area. And there will be in your area as well. And I reckon, and this is very difficult to tell, but I reckon there's about 200 full-time professional wedding photographers in that area. And there's probably about the same number of, let's call them part-timers. So if you've got a job, but you also occasionally on a Saturday go off and do a wedding, there's about 200 people like that as well. So they're going to do some weddings. So if you divide 17,600 by 400, I hope you end up with the number 44. So that's 44 weddings per year per photographer. So there's an ample opportunity. It's not too difficult to see that booking 40 weddings a year is realistic. You're just grabbing the average market share per photographer. Now, of course, there will be wedding photographers there will be some wedding couples who don't want a wedding photographer, or who get their best friend to do it, or so on and so forth. So 44 probably in reality, for people who are actually paying a photographer to do their wedding, maybe you're down to 35 a year. So doing 40, you've got to be slightly better than average. But of course, it also comes down to price. If you want to book 40 weddings a year and you only charge £200, you're going to find life a lot easier than if you want to book 40 weddings a year at £2,000, obviously. So I also looked at somewhere, I've got a bar chart of the number of weddings at particular prices. And I've got a bar chart. So I've got £250 to £500. I've got 15% of the weddings are the couple are paying between £250 and £500. 500 to 750, 21% of weddings fall into that category, and so on and so forth. Now, actually 500 to 750 is the highest column that we've got, 21%. Once we get beyond £750, the percentage of weddings booked gets smaller and smaller and smaller, until by the time we get to weddings over £2,000 for the photographer, we are looking at 6%. So if you are a photographer who, at this end, who wants to book 20 weddings a year at £4,000, you can see that you've got a pretty small number of couples which are in that category that are going to pay that sort of money. What I do is I target the kind of 3 bars between about 1,250 up to 1,750, and I reckon I'm targeting, where's the number, I'm probably targeting about 30% of the market. Some of them are not willing to pay enough to book me for their wedding. Some I don't offer enough in terms of second shooters, albums and all the other stuff that they'll be looking for, because they're willing to pay more for it. Hope that makes sense. And you need to know this, and what I'm telling you now is really of no help at all, but it's just setting the scene that this is stuff you need to work out for where you are, because you need to match your offerings. What is your package or packages at what price? Because if you have a package, turn up for 6 hours, edit the photos, give them 100 photos on a USB stick, and you want to charge £2,000 for that, it doesn't match with what the market is actually is in reality. There won't be probably anyone willing to pay that sort of money for what you're offering. So you need to fit the two together. I can't tell you what that is. In the course I tell you how you can go through and find out, and do some work to try and make sure that you are matching and meeting clients' expectations, that it's realistic and so on. But that is a really important part of running a wedding photography business, or any other business, come to that. So let me just round things off by saying another thing which I found to be crucial. What do you offer and how do you offer it needs to, as I've just said, fit in with what the clients want. But also, there's some psychology here. If you offer a sort of menu, which a lot of photographers seem still to do, you can book me for by the hour. You can book me for 7 hours if you want, or 9 hours, or 2 hours, and they pay by the hour. You can have the photos in colour and black and white, or one or the other. You can have some video or not have video. You can have an album, and so on and so forth. And the client has to go through and pick all the bits they want. I think, in my experience, that is a huge mistake. If you say to a client, if I meet a client, we meet for coffee, and I say, you can have this or you can have that, they'll probably choose one of those. And this or that has a fixed menu of things in it. It has the number of hours, the number of photos, whether it's video or not, whether there's an album or not, and it's a fixed package. The choice is this one or that one. And most people in that situation are able to say, yes, that's news, what I want, and they'll go ahead and book you. If you say, here's my menu, pick out what you want, they'll look at this list. Okay, I'll take this home and I'll get back to you sometime. Maybe not. Probably not, actually, because if they have to decide, in my experience, they're not going to do it. They will come across someone else who's offering them this or that, which will probably be me, and they'll go for that rather than you. So this, I see it online on Facebook and groups and so on, the debate about how to offer things. Come up with what you believe, and in my case I've built that up over years through experience of doing weddings, talking to brides and so on and so forth, finding out what people want here in the UK, which could be different where you are, and come up with packages which suit mostly, which are closely related to what most brides want. I'm sorry, this hasn't and will not be a completely structured set of videos, because unlike learning maths or physics, there's no hierarchy. You don't need to learn this before you can go on to that. With wedding photography and most other businesses, you just got to learn the whole lot. So I'm presenting this fairly logically, I hope. Business photography, and we'll do another one business and another one business photography, and hopefully over the next 7 or 8 videos I'll cover all of the things which I think will help you improve your wedding photography business. Right, I'm going to wrap that up, I think. Let me just make sure. We'll call that it for today. Next video is going to be on photography, and we'll be looking in that video at what is wedding photography and gear and kind of stuff like that. And then we'll move on to, eventually we'll be looking at every stage of the wedding, photographing it, couple shoots, engagement shoots, editing. We're doing lots on editing, and so on and so forth. So, hope that's been useful. If you want to see the rest of the videos, just subscribe, hit the bell, and you'll get a notification when the next one's done. All the best in your business. Thanks for watching.